You were born in Fountain Green, Utah, which is down by Manti.
Yes.
And then your family moved up to Salt Lake, the Murray area, as I understand
First Salt Lake, and then eventually we settled in Murray, and that's where I really grew up.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about your years as a young boy and maybe a little bit about your family life.
Well, my father was a smelter worker out at Kennecott, and so we grew up in what would be today considered lower class or even poverty level. We never thought of it that way. We had everything we wanted, and my dad finally moved us out to Murray because he'd found a little house on 3.5 acres, which was big enough to have a horse and a cow and sheep and chickens and a huge garden, and he wanted us to learn how to work, and that's what we did. I mean, we never went to play until the garden was done, and it was a half-acre garden. That's a lot
That's
of
a
gardening.
big garden.
And he planted 3 or 4 rows of raspberries for what he said was primarily for character building, not for fruit. Oh, we hated picking raspberries. All of us, it was miserable.
Yeah.
But he was right. It was good discipline.
But you did like eating them.
Oh, yes. Mom always bottled 100 jars of raspberries each year. So it was a really happy life. It was a simple life compared to today. I mean, we made up all our own games. In the summer, as soon as dinner was over, we'd go out in the neighborhood and play night games till 11 or 12 at night, and never worried about walking anywhere alone. And when we first moved, the little house we moved to didn't even have indoor plumbing. And so I actually grew up with an outhouse for a couple of years until my dad plumbed the whole house. And so it was just a great life. We had great friends and lots of work and a good, strong family. And
where did you come in the order of your family?
I'm the third. There's 4 boys and a girl, and I'm the third.
Was there someone in your childhood that had really a significant influence on you, that you look back on those days and you see that there was that hand that reached out to you and it made a real difference?
Both of my parents made a tremendous difference. My dad grew up in a really tough home environment in a way. He stayed longer than all of his brothers and sisters. I think there were 10 of them. And he left the house at 17, and he stayed the longest. So he was always outwardly a little bit stern, not very expressive of his emotions. In fact, we used to kid him when we finally got our grandchildren that, how come you never treated us that way? You're so warm. And our children loved to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house. But my mother, who was very gentle in spirit and very quiet, she really had a profound influence too. Hardly ever raised her voice. When it did, when she finally lost it a couple of times, just scared us to death because we'd never seen that, you know. And very committed to teaching us to be responsible citizens. And it was really a profound influence, like Nephi.
Goodly
I
parents.
have to say, goodly parents, yeah, really goodly parents.
Yeah. Did your parents were active in the church, or not as active as
yes.
some?
Interestingly enough, they were married in the temple, in the Manti temple when they were married, and didn't actually ever go back for 50 years. But we went to church all the time, but they weren't active in the sense that you think of totally involved in the church. And my dad had some feelings about hypocrisy in the church, especially with his own parents. And so he could be critical at times of church leadership, more the local, you know, that they weren't living up to, and so on. I'll just give you one example. We always had family prayer. We studied the scriptures a lot before it really became the the thing that we talked about as much as we do now. But in every prayer, he would go through a list of the things we were thankful for. And then he'd always close with this phrase, and we know that all these things come from thy hand. Mm. And it finally began to sink in, he's right. So little things like that just were very influential for me.